Basically, I'll tell you what happened. My son's not the fastest guy in the team, but he works his ass off. So the kids are all on vacation, and they had 3v3. And this kid, who I don't even think was on the team, just refused to pass to him. And I'm like, what am I paying for here?
Literally.
And you got in there telling these kids, I mean, they put a lot of emphasis in scoring. And the other thing as I bitched about is we haven't won a game in a year and haven't lost by less than double digits in soccer.
Are there any other teams in the area?
It's a lifestyle over here in football. It's a whole thing. So I basically said, we're losing. Scoring isn't helping because the teams we play pass all over us.
Yeah.
I didn't actually say in those terms.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, how am I going to continue to tell my son things are going to get better when a 3v3 can't even receive the ball?
Yeah. That's tough. That's tough when it's like other people that you're counting on.
One of those parents, and I did pull him out because he's just running up and down. And then when the kid that refused to pass to him gave the ball away and it resulted in a goal against, then he'd yell at my son. I'm like, oh, get. And the coach wasn't doing that.
Enough.
I just pulled him. I didn't yell or scream or yell at the coach. I actually like the coach a lot. I just wasn't tolerating. And I think part of the problem is they can't go in and tell the kids to knock it off.
Yeah.
Because their parents are so nuts.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to put any pressure on the coach. I'll write the letter if they want to communicate with me in an email. That's great.
Google Translate on your side there.
I'm not going to lie to my son and say things are going to be fine.
Yeah. It raises better kids. Because my mom was definitely it's going to be fine, type.
No, I'm not. Well, look, I told him you have to earn the right to be passed to. You have to work your way into it. You have to give them the trust to do that. But if he can't get the ball 3v3, he's absolutely the best option.
Yeah.
They're actively avoiding him. He can't learn a thing.
Yeah.
That's on the coaches.
Absolutely.
If it's a skill issue or something like that, I'm not raising Ronaldo and Messi here, but I am paying for him to play.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're fucking doing competitive sports like that, it's like, nah. Like, this ain't no school funded, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're paying. And you guys are getting your ass kicked, so you're doing something wrong,
Your setup is so dope. I love that.
It's alright.
It's pretty cool.
We're moving. I just went to the new house today. We're looking around how we're going to set that up. That's going to be a pain in the ass.
I know. New man cave.
Yeah, but me and my wife are kind of in an argument where things should go.
You're like, I want the master bedroom for my machines. No, she disagrees.
I only care about my shit.
Yeah.
Guys have no say in this shit whatsoever. But my office is seeing how much space I could have, and there's an issue where you can actually put the basement stuff. And I still need an attractive view. I got the whole arcade theme going on there. Yeah. It's gonna be a little more difficult. And another thing is, if I put it in the bar, I have to knock down, I have to knock shit down and everything else. I don't know if I want to do that.
I know, those are equal spaces.
I want to spend as little money as humanly possible.
Yeah.
You gotta know how far you can push it. You gotta know when to fucking stand and when to sit down.
Yeah.
Or when that's really the whole trick to being married. Is there's some things you gotta put your foot down and stand your ground, and there's other things you're better off letting it.
Gotta concede. It's like the internet, right?
No, because we're not trying to beat each other. No, so I wouldn't say that. We're both trying to win. I think once it becomes the internet, then it's time for a divorce.
Hit the door. Well, what a privilege. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No problem.
Warmest welcomes to my very special guest. I super appreciate it. Do you want to just start by introducing yourself and your channel?
I'm TommyC. I run a YouTube channel called TommyC's SFTP, which is essentially a podcast. I ripped my entire style, or really, because I just wanted a stupid show like Howard Stern. But I really couldn't get any traction with
hockey.
That was kind of my sports and dude bro. I was just out of the army at the time, and I kind of wanted to kind of recapture that sort of locker room feel.
The sports pod.
Be able to talk about sports, and because I noticed there wasn't a word for it at the time. They were becoming woke, and I didn't. That's not the way people talk in a locker room. That's not the way guys talk offline.
Yeah.
That's the way if guys do talk like that, they're virtue signaling, and they're not well liked. So
yeah.
I wanted to do something different. I had this, but I did have this. What do you call it? And I think that's what I provide now. Sort of a secret pleasure that I wouldn't tell anyone. Like, I really dug YouTube drama. Like a girl.
Yeah.
And I like the drama in hockey too. I like the reporters fighting and all that stuff too. And I did really like Drama Alert. I loved when YouTubers fought. It seemed a little more pure back then.
Yeah.
A little more fair, a little less vicious.
Yeah.
I mean, this
lots
is
of general
crazy.
statements about people's character
There
now.
was a time when I was the most vicious guy. And if you compare me to like people that are doing their thing now, I'm probably the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I mean, one of the things I still told that on Dave is he asked me where the line was, and I was like, I'm not going to tell you.
We'll cross it when we get there.
Sure. Yeah. I don't. Well, I can't tell it would have a line because then you're kind of giving the keys away. But I do have a line, and I think now people know what it is, so it's easier to get over on me.
Yeah, I guess the more time you spend online, probably like the easier it is to pinpoint your Achilles heel, right?
Yeah, I guess.
So just as a little refresher, or for the unacquainted, would you mind just going over like a brief synopsis of how you got offered the position that you ultimately accepted as the host for LOLCow Live?
Nick suggested me. They couldn't get DSP, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I was kind of interested to see how that would go. I know how that would go now.
Yeah.
Having actually been there.
They needed someone with pushback, I feel like. DSP would have just been a third disaster.
I think that was the ultimate. We can't get DSP, so why don't, have Tommy go in and bust their nuts. And that's the way I always saw it. And, I'm a professional podcaster. That's the thing. It seemed like a really fun opportunity.
Yeah.
And me and Keem had mended our fences since 2019. So, worst case scenario, I make some cash and that's it. It just breaks up.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Topowski.
I don't look at breakups over podcasts like I don't take them as personally as I did years ago.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I'll do it as long as I can, and as soon as that runs out, I'm out, and that's fine. And I wasn't going to handle it like they did and get all pissed off and take it personally. And that's unfortunately that's what ended up happening.
Hope for the best, expect the worst, right?
Yeah, literally. But I mean, people say that and they don't actually mean it or follow it. I did. I got no beef with anybody. Even Boogie was a pain in the ass to work with. But
I can imagine.
I can't say I didn't have. When we flipped the record button on, it was fun for me.
Yeah.
For sure. I felt like I was in my element. I thought I did a job.
Yeah, no, I think you did too. I think that's why people have made so many retrospectives looking back on things, especially because they kind of immediately started trying to rewrite history on that. Just to breeze into my topic a little bit, what would you say are a few unmistakable attributes that define a LOLCow?
Lying and doubling down on it. That seems the things that gets people in trouble. The other part is a little less fortunate, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I do have a certain amount of empathy. There does seem to be mental disabilities that also sort of encourage that. I really try to be as kind as possible.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you have somebody with some sort of mental disability, and they will do the same thing over again, even if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that kind of defines a LOLCow too. But they're the ones I like the least, because it's what good is it if you can't defend yourself? I like it somebody like a LOLCow Dark Viper. I mean, he's capable of defending himself. Now, he may have a mental illness, but he's definitely capable of defending himself.
Facilities are there, so.
Yeah, those are the guys I like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that kind of leads into my next question, because I was going to say, do you think someone's naturally predisposed to the LOLCow gene, or do you think it's a chain of events that happens to them? But
no, I think I don't think there's a gene. Well, I know you're not being literal.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a gene, so to speak. But I think there's a bunch of factors. Mental illness being one of them. Ego. I've gotten caught up in believing my own bullshit, especially towards the end of Baited.
Yeah.
But I think what separated me from becoming a LOLCow, so to speak, is that I kind of have the ability to say, I fucked that up. And that's the one thing that think if they all have in common, there is no ability for any kind of self-expression.
Yeah. It's like when all the writing's on the wall still, they'll still, like, try and push into their corner.
That can be mental, and that can also be, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You know? You know, another thing is, you know, I don't want to get into, like, intelligence can play into it as well. I mean, if you can't learn from your mistakes, that is a sign of a lack of intelligence, but that's not always the case. I mean, very intelligent people can do extremely irrational things based on their ego. So
yeah.
I think it's a multitude of factors.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my grandma, she had, like, all the papers when it was, like, don't hire Irish here, blah, blah, like, Irish can't work here.
I grew up with all that bullshit, too.
Yeah, and she's like, don't let them forget. Don't let them forget. I'm like, Grandma, it doesn't affect me right now.
Hey, Grandma, maybe we should forget.
Yeah, like, I don't think people want to remember, like, want me to bring up, like, oh, my family was involved in that, too. Like, I don't think that would go well for me now.
Well, it was funny, like, the Irishman came out, and my grandfather was at the Pipefitters Union in New York, and if you've seen the Irishman, you see a guy named Tony Provenzano, who was a captain in the Genovese crime family. He tried to push the union towards the Teamsters Union with Tony Pro at the time.
That's crazy.
This thing came, yeah. He told me about talking to him when he was in jail. You know, this guy's a psychopathic murderer. You know,
yeah.
But that's the way. That's what he grew up in Newark. You know, you had to deal with gangsters.
No, deadass. Over there on the East Coast especially, it was worse.
Yeah, La Cosa Nostra really never took much of a hold in California. Not nowhere near as much.
Right, I think that's why they came over here. Okay, I'm so sorry. My face turned, like, bright red for so long. I was trying to clear my calculator. You know, just doing the math on it. Okay, was manufacturing drama always kind of part of the show's intention, or was it a necessity after your termination?
I reject, especially when I was there, the manufacturing, stirring things up.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that was partly my job. Manufacturing, I started getting suspicious towards the end, especially with the Boogie cancer. But, I mean, as far as, like, was there a set plan? Do we sit behind and say, we're going to do this? I didn't do anything. I probably did less of what I had done in the past. Like, I would go on Twitter, because I knew whose buttons to push back in, like, 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
And I knew exactly to get the reaction, and they would hand me the content to talk about. I mean, I just found, like, certain people ridiculous. I didn't really do much of that this time. In fact, the only interaction I had with anybody of any note was an A-logger of Wings called, or DSP called Snort Hogan. You know, and I just found his outrage so comical.
Yeah.
Yeah, you think you're a tough guy, but I kick your ass, I'll get out of here. Yeah, maybe you would. I'm always 50, check off. You know,
yeah.
So I found that kind of funny. But I know as far as manufacturing, I mean, did I try to get them, you know, crazy and what have you? But as far as making overarching narrative like you're seeing now, no, I was never a part of that, and I never, and you know, so, like, when you do this YouTube drama thing, sometimes this shit kind of happens naturally too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what it is. It's pushing each other's buttons, right? But it's like there's a line between that and, like, writing a sitcom.
I never wrote any of the thumbnails as far as, or made any of the thumbnails. I never said that Boogie's girlfriend was kidnapped. I really don't care so much about that because it's just trying to drive engagement. What I don't like is when you do something like that, it should be satirical. And this particular crowd, and I think this is a business mistake on Keem's part, these people that were interested in what we were doing in this podcast are used to, like, reality TV, clips of Boogie Wings and DSP, and they expect a certain amount of organic shenanigans, for lack of a better word. And I think what irritated them is it didn't feel very organic with some of the, you know, bold statements and thumbnails and titles that we made. And I think that was kind of made a little bit of a division. That being said, I did quickly realize that this was a hate cast, and you were going in to hate the host and hate people, and I was like, okay, give them what they want.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Make yourself hateable.
Exactly. I think that's where they started to get lost in the sauce, is where they were rejecting the fact that the audience was laughing like at them, not with them, and then they started to kind of get on their high horse in that regard.
Well, I think I gotta stick up for Boogie and Wings here. I think they knew they were going to get laughed at. They may not have liked it, but they understood that concept. I don't think Keem understood that, because Keem is so used to having so much success.
Yeah.
And he was going out to play the good guy, and he always says, well, I'm the bad guy, but then goes out to play the good guy. And I think I think that would have happened. My plan was, if you want to do a manufacturing, here was my plan. I was going to be their pain in the ass, and then hopefully over time, but I do realize this, they get the redemption arc, and then I become the bad guy.
Yeah, because straight up,
that would have been it. But what happened is I kind of started off a little too strong, so I kind of became the bad guy too soon. I listened to the criticism, I took notes, and I changed it up, and I had a little more respect from the fan base. And then they would do their goofy stuff. But I think even Wings got somewhat of a redemption arc.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the plan, because I knew it would never last forever. So that would have been the best case scenario. And Boogie's incapable of making a decision. So I think.
Yeah.
I don't. Even the best of situation, I think they would have. The guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Clearly. And yeah, that's. I haven't kept up with them recently, but I keep seeing like new host tryout. Like Keemstar's pretty much stepped in as the indefinite host. Like that he wanted like the fame and glory of it, but he didn't want like the exactly what you said. You were ready to like be the punching bag a little bit for it. So, and I know you had said like in regards to the like shares 25% thing, like you had initially believed maybe like Boogie and Naive were.
No, I never believe any of them. I don't know what the fuck those two were talking about. He told me about his shares and I just like laughed.
Yeah, that was my question, is like, were you ever slightly inclined to believe?
No, he thinks he's still talking to the 8-year-old fans that he had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Straight up.
My age range for my own numbers have gone up. And I'm pretty sure everybody I talked to was well over 20 and 25.
Yeah.
So, like, it wasn't the same. You can't sit there and... You can do that to kids in the whole PewDiePie generation and say their shares and all that other stuff, and it all doesn't matter because it's all a show anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, the thing is, like, he told me he owned it. He also told me he was going to have anything to do with it. He was just going to manage from the outside. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
The numbers weren't what he hoped they were, and then it became kind of his show from all aspects. It was always his show. It was always, as soon as. I protested the Connor situation. It was abundantly clear, if it wasn't before, that we had absolutely no say over absolutely anything.
Yeah.
That's when I kind of was like, all right, when performance-wise, I'm going to do my best, but, I'm not going to sit there and fool myself, and I'm not going to lie to the audience. When the shares things came up, if you notice, I just kept my mouth.
Yeah. Was it frustrating in that regard, like Keemstar kind of got to have his cake and eat it too, in regards to like maintaining a relatively, I guess, fair, not reputation, but position to the show specifically, to the audience, but also having like complete control over like the says in it?
Well, I mean, it was always going to be frustrating, so I don't know if I looked at it in those terms. I mean, I knew I was working with, and I knew I was working for him. I think the only thing that I didn't expect, but I should have expected, is his constant tinkering. And he did that with Baited as well. More so, but it actually gotten worse. He's calmed down, like, his public persona has calmed down a lot.
Yeah.
And I would even say behind the scenes he's calmed down a lot. But his hands are on everything.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want him to, because he knows how much it takes time, whatever the hell he's doing on the rest of,
Right. It's like that mom, like, trying to show you how to bake something, but she's like, no, let me just do it. I'll do it.
I think it was 2016, and it's a completely different audience, and even the kids that were 16 are now 25, 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
So he's playing to that audience, but the audience we're collecting are the ones that really honestly hate Wings and Boogie to a point where it's insane.
Yeah.
Or people that I think were like me that enjoyed the clips.
Yeah.
And enjoyed it, and
the actual, like, younger audience is, like, on TikTok now. Like, they're not on YouTube as much as they were.
I remember, I'll never forget this, and this is where things, like, where did it all go wrong, and maybe the constant pedo allegations of 2019 that seem to have never gone away. It's like 5 years straight and stuff now. But where I remember Nick Cash this streamer. He's not a pro streamer anymore. I see him every so often. I had a famous blowout with him, but I generally like the guy. I remember him saying in a stream one time, "You think this sucks now? Wait till these Vine guys get." I'll never forget when he said that, and that was Logan Paul and the Paul brothers and
Straight up.
Girl, the Gabby Hanna and stuff like that. By the way, I like Gabby. I've spoken to her privately. I don't want to talk about her.
The Gabby Hanna arc.
That really changed it, and he benefited from that too, especially with the Logan Paul stuff and the Jake Paul stuff.
Yeah.
Initially, but it's not like that anymore, and the audience we're targeting have jobs.
Yeah.
You know,
straight up. Like, we're very selective with our time. It's a different time.
They're more like you. You know, you're going out hustling every day.
Yeah.
You know, trying to,
I'm on my grind.
Your internet's the hobby, and the internet's your hobby. It might be a passionate hobby, but it's a hobby nonetheless. And I don't think he understood that for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, there was really not much I could tell him. You know, there's no any kind of sit down as like, we're not doing it the right way. Would have been.
Yeah.
You know, well, now I gotta take him. It's like, okay, what do I gotta do to get him shit canned now? And I knew that, so I just took the money.
Yeah. Yeah, straight up. Straight up.
I always gave my best performance. I have tried to like hell. Did I always succeed? Absolutely not. Right? But I always gave 100% for the fans. And for people that actually got it. There were more than a few that didn't get the joke. I give Keemstar all the credit in the world. It was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
The execution was lousy.
Yeah. I know, that's what it comes down to, is I think everyone thinks it's just kind of a big waste of potential at the end of the day, you know?
I think that's what frustrates them more than it frustrates me.
Yeah.
Because I know him, I've dealt with him for years now, and it was very clear when they let this guy in that we all knew, and Keeman told me to stay away from him years ago, this games attorney, which I don't really have a problem with games attorney. He started putting the LOLCow podcast in his name and .coms and stuff like that, and then he calls me up and goes, "Who is this guy?" I go, "What do you mean, who is this guy? He's the manager. You hired him, right?" "No, I don't know what this guy is." And
okay, that's actually hilarious.
He would go into the chats and say, "Okay, games attorney, you do this, and you do this, and you do this," and click, and he'd hang up. And that's his management style.
Oh, wow. I'm like, I could not.
Yeah, it's just that simple, and then he wonders why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Boogie and Wings, Boogie and Wings never should have been counted on to do anything other than show up and be themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was the same thing with Baited. I mean, I edited one of the episodes, but there was almost no responsibility given to me, and I don't think he wanted me to have it. Just like he didn't want me to have it with Baited.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would turn around and say, "I didn't give you a response because I couldn't trust you," and all that stuff, but whatever. You know, I mean, we'll trust Boogie then.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy because it's, you know, over the years we've gotten more and more people who have had accounts of working firsthand with Keemstar, so it's like, okay, one or two people, it's like rogue former Scorn employee, okay, but when everyone has a common consensus, especially when it's multiple people that you know, might respect their opinion and other stuff, you had said that Keemstar kind of has a way of, like, creating a common enemy, you know, like in the work dynamic, like Connor,
there's
you.
Always a new, I like that you said a common enemy, because there's a new enemy every week.
Yeah, just trying to, like, zero in on someone, you know?
Yeah.
What advice would you have for, like, people in similar situations? Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
He likes to play chess, and he likes that's his favorite part.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was never a good business environment. I've had people come up to me, certainly he's been successful. And certainly, you know, the podcast is still successful. It's not a podcast, though, it's a prank channel.
Yeah, that's very good way to say it.
Which, by the way, I have no problem with, and I don't wish any of those guys, like, any kind of lack of success.
Yeah.
He was right about, like, the podcast itself was not pulling the numbers that he wanted it to. Now, I would have argued that he had time and maybe or at least give me the stream. I was told right before everything fell apart that I would be taking the stream and he'd move away because he'd bring Drama Alert back. But, you know, it's like...
Too little, too late.
It's the same thing as... Well, the same thing he's telling me is that there's shares, and I owned it. And then that he was... Initially he told me he wasn't taking a nickel, and then he was taking a nickel. You know?
Let me get it in writing.
yeah, but there's no getting in writing with him, so it was just, yeah, sure, yeah. Because I knew, like you could say something one day and change his mind the next. Everything's done on gut.
Yeah.
Gut feeling. It's very... I really wonder... Although, maybe I'm not in a position to say this because I haven't had this desk. I don't know how he ever made money doing what he's done. Maybe it's just by kind of a, like, full Aries type mentality, bull straight ahead.
Yeah.
And maybe that does work, but I think that the system is, it's not the Wild West anymore. And I think you can get away with that, even 5 years ago, but not so much anymore. I think you got to be. You look at Logan Paul's, and you look at even PewDiePies, and the guys that have been really successful with RoboCops. These guys are smart guys, and they understand the algorithm and that.
Yeah, like took years to study it, not just like post. Like
there's these groups that they have these where the creators get together and they share notes and what have you is probably the best way to learn on how to get views. But in the downside, it's also the best way to get screwed.
Right.
Because everybody's out to get each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, so it goes like that. But I don't think he ever adjusted that. He's openly admitted that he's not a numbers. I'm not either, by the way, because I don't even know where to begin with that stuff.
Oh, yeah, because I should talk about numbers. So I'm like, I got nothing to say about that.
I really can't say. I really can't say. I mean, I can't doubt it. Then that was another thing. Like, I can't. It's a little difficult for me to go to the table. It's like, I don't think it's working. I don't know if I like the idea of broadcasting 3-4 days a week. And he's looking at it. And by the way, maybe rightly so. We have to make money. The idea behind this business is to make money. Maybe we got to broadcast a week. 2 days a week or one podcast. But he's right. When as much as everybody cried when I left, the numbers were still good, and I couldn't compete when he was on.
Yeah.
By himself, he can pull the audience, and
it was in its infancy, but whatever.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it, but I don't think that's the way it's now or nothing. Now or I'm not. No one's gonna call me a loser.
Almost did you say short-sighted? Especially if he was going to be hands-off. Like, you can just put your brain behind it, then you could have not been embarrassed by it. Like,
there's no such thing as hands-off.
Yeah.
I never believed that.
Yeah.
I didn't believe when you tell them I didn't believe their shares. I didn't believe any of this stuff. The shares, they're real. No, they're not. I got paid at the end of the month by a pay.
Yeah, little naivety,
That's it.
Optimism.
I just turned 48.
Yeah.
I don't know who he thinks he's talking to. And I got that feeling.
Boogie's 50, though, too. Like, the fact that anyone could have even believed that for a second.
No, I mean, talk to me like as a child. This will happen if you did. Like, I grew up in New Jersey. I know 10,000 con artists. Like, they have a much better con than you.
Do you have a Chase account? Yeah. From, like, firing up that stream.
At the same time, I wouldn't take him any other way.
Yeah.
I've just kind of gotten used to that. I always run around saying I scammed him. I scammed him.
I haven't heard that arc. I'm like, I don't keep that close.
I scammed him.
That's hilarious. But from, like, firing up that stream when you had, like, prior commitments and, saying that you weren't going to come on and defend yourself to, like, saying that all the commenters, like, rejoiced when you left, how do you deal with, like, bigger content creators rewriting history, like, in real time?
Fire up the stream.
How do you maintain composure? Like, is that frustrating or is that scary? Or...
I don't have much composure. You ever see my show? I thought tune in to see if I might blow up. Really? I don't know. I mean, composure is my thing. Or I don't know. I think there's a time for everything. There's a time to blow up and there's a time to have.
Yeah.
And I don't always mix it right. A debate or some sort I had over Turkey Tom's cheating his girlfriend, and I've done it a little different. Because I went with full TommyC mode when I should have just laid back and let the guy seem like more of a pearl-clutching baby.
It's hard. It's really hard. I know. I guess that's the Irish in us, dude. I'm like, it's hard to not get, reactionary. You just, like, take a step back and, like, look at things.
No, I'm a reactionary person. I literally react to content. I'm a critic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I like to think a funny critic. I mean, you gotta decide that for yourself.
I think so.
Yeah, well, thanks.
What's one thing you learned from your time on the show and one thing you regret from your time on the show?
Regret it didn't work, and I didn't learn a thing. That's it. This is a lot more difficult 8 years ago with me. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I really don't care. And it's funny because my numbers are down, way down even before LOLCow last year, and I don't care. It's like if it's the end of the road, I have no problem doing that. I'm not in a position where I can't just get a fucking real job.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in a position to get a real job that's making more money than I'm making now.
I know, people are sweating. They're like, no. Life is over.
I don't learn a thing.
Would you do it again if you could go back in time?
Yeah. Why not? Sure. Yeah, if it wasn't like a situation like, oh my god, I never did it. Because I remember Vito wrote me something like, you really got to learn from working with guys. Like, I know exactly where I was going to end. I knew this exact scenario, but everything's happening according to the way I saw it going, and I knew what I was going to do before I was going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I even had I don't want to famous when I was in the street and I called him out. You know, you're gonna pay me. I probably practiced that last January. I practice those types of selfie videos all the time. And I do it around. I walk around and I yell out loud, and I'll do it in my Discord with the other guys. And what did that sound like? And yeah, sure. Like, I purely expect. Like, Keemstar is one of the things that he is that he wasn't 10 years ago. Is he's very predictable. So, yeah. And I say this with I don't really have any like ill will.
It's the LOLCow gene.
He didn't. Yeah, I guess. I guess you can be rich LOLCow. I don't know.
You see how we're like wrapping around here? There's like a point to make.
Yeah, maybe you know there is something to be said because I know both of them were scared that he. And maybe there's something to be said.
Scared that he what? Sorry.
It needs a better fit that I'm gone, just for, like creatively, artistically. I can accept that. I don't really.
They wanted like a third, like true proper LOLCow, so I think Keem is like the perfect indefinite step in.
Yeah, I guess. And then you know he's got all the money and he's made stuff. But the one thing I hear over and over again is the fans feel ripped off. I had someone call me yesterday and tell me they feel ripped off. I don't know. What are you telling me for? You should support me more. You know?
I know. Come donate to my stream. I'll give you better content. I swear.
Yeah.
What was like your main takeaway from the chain of events or your termination?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Like I said,
Keep going.
I let it go, and how I went, and I prepared for the moment, and I executed completely, and I got fucking paid, unlike last time.
Yeah.
I got ripped off for the final check, so I got paid. And I knew how to do it. I knew I couldn't do it, like, by going into a call with him, and him waiting for me to say the one thing that he would take out of context and put out to the to justify what he was doing, like signing an NDA or just saying something wrong. I said, no, I worked, you pay me, nothing more. And I let the internet pressure him because what he didn't realize is something I did is most of the people have jobs. I got very, very little resistance from this.
Yeah.
And, you know, you go back 8 years ago, and when he lied and he said that I thanked him for feeding my family, which was never fucking true. And then I did this bit where I took my less than a year old son, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to sell you because you know Keemstar won't feed us anymore." And that particular video, even though it's so clearly satirical, was probably the biggest mistake of my career.
Really?
Oh no, permanent damage, because it like there was the 8-year-olds back then. Or the teenagers back then too. And
They're like their parents actually said some shit like that to them, and it like stuck a chord.
I don't know if they took it literally or they didn't care if it was literal. Because if you go back and say you shouldn't be asking people to feed your family, you should do it yourself. You know, I thought it was really, really funny.
Yeah.
And what I didn't understand is when you're as popular as somebody like him, you're not going to get over with the fans by using the same tactics.
Yeah.
So I had a plan to get my money when he finally got around to Connor and me. And it worked. And I did it by saying little, saying you paid me, showing that I told him I was going on vacation, that it wasn't any kind of issue. And at the end of the day, I didn't even get myself paid. He ran back to all the commentators, and they basically said, we don't support you. So he paid me. And then he told everybody I scammed him. That's really what it was. The only thing was going to do it was public pressure. And I knew if I did anything that would put a distaste in anybody's mouth, that I wouldn't get paid. So I just said what I said and let the internet do the work, which is what I should have done 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So if I learned anything, I really didn't learn anything from LOLCow. I learned from Baited.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, see, that's how you know you don't have the LOLCow gene, because you learned, you reformed your approach, you walked on eggshells, you treaded lightly, and you know, accomplished the position that you went in for.
I was a podcaster. They hired me to podcast. I did a good job. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't say that. I couldn't even say that 8 years ago because you're supposed to do it for the love of the game. People don't fucking look at it that way anymore.
Yeah.
They look at it more.
We're all capitalists.
Yeah. I came from an environment that working hard and making money and showing ambition was rewarded, and I forgot, because I was in the Army 10 years, that sometimes ambition is looked at as something very, very different. It's greed. Mm-hmm. Ambition is not greed.
Yeah.
Ambition is the willingness and the eagerness to succeed. And then I came off as too eager, 8 years ago. Whereas now people are putting in time to get their Christmas off or their summer vacation off, and they can completely identify with me. Where when they were living with their parents, they couldn't 8 years ago.
Yeah. Very interesting perspective. Yeah, I think that's a big part of why the audience shift has happened as well. People have just never had to deal with their own bills and stuff before then. It's like, okay, well, if you're obviously jumping into content creation full time, there's the struggling artist trope is a thing for a reason. My roommate is she does Instagram full time, so I'm brand deals and stuff. I'm it's definitely highs and lows, and especially when you risk your reputation on that. Sorry, I have a hard time.
I think people were, when I started, it was still kind of a new concept to be a professional content creator, even though there have been a few prior to that. And the ones that we're doing that were always considered because they didn't know there's, I consider myself sort of a working class entertainer. I'm a little more check to check.
Yeah. Yeah, straight up. It's like stand-up comedy or something.
Well, yeah. And the only ones that really should be allowed to be as openly ambitious, talk about money openly like I have in the past, which is something I stopped. Were the ones at the tip top. Nobody like me should talk like that. And I realized that they just
you fucking Irishman.
Right or wrong. What's that?
You fucking Irishman.
I don't make money. I just let's take this to a 27-year-old woman. Me doing absolutely everything I can to bring as much money home as possible is something to be admired. To a child, it's greed. He was well aware of that 8 years ago. He said I was greedy.
Yeah.
This time I showed, yeah, sure, whatever, and I knew it was going to fall apart before it started, and I wrote and did the best I could with what I had. And then I cashed out when I could. And then, last time I didn't get paid for the final check, which I more than earned.
Yeah.
And he thought that by swaying public opinion that he could have the sort of clout, we say this on Shopping Point, clout capital, that he would have the clout capital to not pay me.
Yeah.
And then he found out that he didn't have it, and so he paid me. And
Good.
he said I scammed him.
Yeah. Well, lesson learned. I'm I have a controversial one for you. Well, they attempt to create drama on LOLCow Live. Actual LOLCows, like Boblax, are being successfully milked on the same platforms. What are your thoughts on the market competition that seems to be organically outperforming a podcast specifically designed to milk LOLCows?
I don't know, that's funny. I think there will always be LOLCows. I don't look at it that way. It's like, Jesus Christ, that Boblax is really kicking our ass.
It's true. Have you seen this, bro? Have you seen Nick, Augie? There's been so many streams. They're probably making way more money than LOLCow right now.
Boblax, Boblax, I have a weird feeling, or weird kind of opinion is I made this publicly known that when Boblax is kind of being taken in, I kind of I rang the warning bell. This guy kind of all about himself.
Yeah, no, he's always given that vibe.
Well, everybody I cared about, or everybody, I don't have the rule that, if we're friends online and never met, that I can treat you like you're disposable or just future content. I don't have that. I saw that in Boblax. And, I do have some loyalty. And I knew Boblax had none of it. And, I kind of warned him. So when he kind of blew up, I was, I felt the same way I did with Tipster, which was another guy I warned him about. But here's the thing. You can get mad about all your friends cozying up with YouTubers you don't like and get pushed out and not make money. Or you can suck up your ego and work with them.
Straight up.
And work with them. And I didn't even work with them and said, one day Boblax will blow up or one day Tipster will blow up. I mean, maybe secretly, privately, I thought that, but it wasn't even something, if everybody's on the same page and getting along, then I'm perfectly fine with it.
Yeah.
But so when Tipster and Boblax kind of sabotaged themselves, there was a little bit, not as much as I probably would have enjoyment I would have felt at the time. People would have caught on to it when I was saying it, but it was a little bit, I kind of felt.
Told you so.
I think what happened with Bobax too is like I told them so. They didn't believe me. Then they did, but he was already kind of in there, and I think there was a lot. I think when you saw with Nick, like Bobax, it's like he accepted. Like you gotta accept people for their faults.
Yeah.
And I think he was accepting his faults. Now at the time, I think there's a limit on the amount of faults you can accept. But I don't think they saw things quite the way I did. So it wasn't, and then when they did, it's like, okay, but yeah, you can kind of be controlled as long as we don't do this, that, and the other thing. But eventually, his jealousy and his blind ambition really just ate himself alive.
Yeah.
So, and then that's, I don't...
I know, that's a bummer. I didn't mean to be a bummer. I'm sorry.
No, it is a bummer. Like, I don't take any joy in Bobax. I already make $500 a month, and it's like, I make more.
I would hope you make more money than that. I would hope.
$500 a month. I don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
But I don't shed tears for guys who put themselves in that position.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah. I'm like, there's work out there, you know.
Sure.
What have you gained in your creative ventures since your time on LOLCow? I know it was like a long time ago now, but what stuff has been like?
I'm a talk show host. I'm a critic. I'm an obnoxious asshole on the internet. That's all I ever purported to be. I'm not that talented, I guess. I have a new idea for a project, but I don't think it's getting more than 1,000 views. I'll maybe over time. I think it's a good one of these things that might hit a year from now or something.
Bro, have you heard about the power of manifestation? Come on. I'm just kidding.
No.
Speak it into existence. It will get over 1,000. It could get over 10,000. We don't know.
Yeah, well, I think this particular project I have might down the road get this idea I have might down the road.
You're like, it's before it's time.
Yeah, well, here's another thing. I don't know if it'll get claimed or not. There's a bunch of other kind of logistical issues too. I think, yeah, if I get this out getting claimed, yeah, it could be. But you know, I mean, I got this. I look at YouTube like radio, which nobody does. And I see streaming sort of like a radio thing. That's all I ever wanted to be when I did.
A radio host?
Some kind of radio host.
Aww.
I wanted to be a radio guy. I love Don Imus. I love Howard Stern. I love listening to news radio. I love listening to sports radio. I just think it's the coolest medium. And you can do other shit while you're doing it. I think it's way cooler. I wish that... I remember listening to shows that may happen to be on, like, from the 30s and 40s and stuff like that, where they used to do movies and reenact them on the radio. I'm like, why don't they do that anymore? It's so cool. You know?
Yeah.
I think I listened to Casablanca on the way back from Connecticut to New Jersey when I flew in from Germany.
Like audiobooks and stuff?
Well, Humphrey Bogart was the voice actor. So you got the actor, right? It was so cool.
That is pretty cool.
You know, and there's so much more that can be done with radio and that's all I ever really wanted to do. Most of you guys grew up wanting to be YouTubers. You know, if I was born in 1990, I probably would. Well, not 1990. Now I'm 19,000. Nowadays, yeah.
Who knows?
I was born in 99, 2000, 2005. I probably the same way. But I didn't. I grew up with radio, and I grew up with the biggest radio market in the country, if not the. So those are the. And by the way, I was a weird kid too. I like radio. You know.
I wanted to be a news lady, if it's any consolidation. It wasn't like YouTuber was like the thing, but you know.
Yeah, YouTube just kind of fit.
Yeah.
It fit a little bit. So I mean, some people like me. They pay me every month.